Here, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So I was just telling Pete earlier, the way that I looked at this was knowing that that individual had come to one of our meetings and mentioned if their policy is for no commercial activity in the library, how come we're accepting tutoring and people are doing tutoring services in the library? Oh, there's Marcia.
Terribly sorry.
Hello.
I don't think it's that.
Yes, it is. I was here at like 4:30 and traffic was already crazy. So you're driving now? You don't need me to give you a ride or anything?
Look at it, she's even holding the coffee cup.
Yeah. Good for you,
Marcia
Marcia.
stand up playing in emergency rooms and so we.
Oh, no.
Oh,
God.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
All right, so we were just starting, Norina was just,
I was just starting to say that the way I looked at this was with the understanding that I was supposed to see, sort of dig into what the individual that came to our meeting had said about if we have a policy that says no commercial activity is to happen on library grounds, how come we're allowing tutors to use the meeting rooms and, I'm having a hard time with the two names, the meeting rooms and the study rooms, to be used for tutoring and then exchange of money. And we didn't really have an answer for that at the time. I looked at the policies. I tried to find law that would say, we weren't allowed to do it, but there isn't any that I could find. I think the concern was that we don't want to run afoul of the rule that says, we can't inure a benefit to a private person as a library that's getting public funding. But I don't think that applies to tutoring because I've noticed that some of the libraries do have a separate tutoring policy. And another issue is that the meeting room says no commercial activity, but the study rooms does not address that at all. So I don't know if we want to also say meeting rooms and study rooms, no commercial activity on any of the library grounds, and then have a separate policy that says tutoring is allowed at the library.
That's what Albany.
Yeah,
yeah, now, I thought Albany has a separate tutoring policy. They don't specifically mention in that, like that it can be, for money or they
it
just.
says for profit or
Oh,
non-for-profit.
did you say that?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I didn't read it carefully enough. I thought,
I thought it
Oh,
said
here it
for
is.
profit or not-for-profit.
I thought it was silent.
no, it just doesn't, it doesn't say anything.
Maybe I saw it in the regulations and the stuff that was talking about.
So, yeah, so some of the, I thought it was interesting, there was a question about meeting room policies, and they really talked about, the limit on, and, something inuring to a private,
Yeah.
benefit or whatever, that,
Yeah.
that if you're just making things available on an even basis, the fact that they're used by somebody for a business does not, violate it seemed to be what it was saying, right? Like, because they were saying, because it was giving examples and saying, look, when people start up businesses, they might need, it's, various resources that they might get from the library, but one of those would be like the use of space to meet with people or do things, which we currently, it seems like, where is that?
But I think what concerned me was that prohibition on commercial activity was only addressed in the meeting room policies for most libraries, not in the study room. And I
Right.
actually think if we're gonna do that, we have to address that in the study rooms, because I think commercial activity would happen most likely in the study rooms. Like, it's two different things. The meeting
I
rooms,
agree.
the meeting rooms are like, you can have a seminar on like, hey, buy my product. Like, we're definitely not doing that. So I think that's correct in prohibiting commercial activity in that sense. But if we're gonna open up the study rooms to, I was thinking only tutoring. But if, Mike, you're saying all commercial activities, I don't know, that might be tricky.
Well,
How do you define commercial
Yeah,
activity?
because,
Exchange of money
was,
was
that's,
defined in there.
I think, because we might want to say, and this is something that, even if we're allowing tutoring, so suppose, just hypothetically, suppose we did something like Albany and had a separate tutoring policy where we make it clear that tutoring is allowed in the room and we can, kind of specify how that's supposed to work, or whatever.
Yeah.
We might still not want people, well, we'd still say, look, you can reserve a study room to use for tutoring, but you can't, advertise or solicit, for tutoring on library, that's still.
Definitely.
And we might want to say, and also you're not, supposed to be exchanging, money on, library, like property, like we don't want buying
Language
and stuff.
control.
Just what? I don't know if we care or not.
Hey, afterward.
Well, or, in practice, probably most people are doing like Venmo or whatever, and it's not gonna be, but.
What worries me about the tutoring thing, I think we should be able to have people come, but there are very large commercial tutoring organizations. That, for instance, Mathnasium
Yeah,
down on Western Avenue, they tutor mathematics, but they are a multi-site, upstate, downstate, big, relatively big, commercial endeavor that does tutoring. And there are other places that do tutoring for SATs, GMACs, all kinds of specialty exams, MBTs. So do we want the Mathnasiums of the world who are tutoring kids? And they have, they have a
yeah.
desk arrangement there. They'll tutor 7 or 8 or
But why
10
would they
kids at
come
a time.
here then?
Well, I'm just using them as an example.
No, but any big place, why would they come
I-
here for a
I-
small study room?
I would doubt
We
that.
have limits on the number of people that can be in the study room.
Well, and also we have limits on how far in advance you can
Right.
reserve them. So if you're like a large commercial operation where you have like, where you have large numbers of students that are coming through that you're tutoring every week and everything,
Right.
it's just not gonna be feasible to rely on the library to be able to regularly get those things. So it seems, I'm a little more skeptical that people are, that any bigger size organization, I could see, individual tutors who, tutor for money and they go to people's houses and things like that, but there may
Right.
be,
I think that would be the purpose we'd be interested in.
Yeah, and, I don't think that's, I'm open to us not excluding those if you read our current policy, and again, our current study room policy
Right.
doesn't, it is, doesn't really say.
And
Does
Albany's,
it say-
Albany's tutoring is silent as to whether it's for profit or not.
I really thought I saw something
Yeah.
where maybe it was in one of the documents that was talking about how they're interpreting that policy for non-commercial activity. I'm positive. I saw
The
something.
thing though with the tutoring, one of our goals as an institution is education.
Yeah, and that,
It fits in with that perfect.
that's in our mission statement, lifelong
Exactly.
learning, so I agree with that.
Independent teachers or whoever, are doing this tutoring, they're not part of a big, whatever that place is that you're talking about.
Yeah, that was just an example.
Okay. It's a safe place for the kids, it's a safe place for the teachers. And in this day and age, that's one of the big things I hear is that parents feel comfortable, the teachers feel comfortable. And I think it's a public service by
Yeah.
giving them a safe place to increase their skills.
Yeah, and I think I was saying. I haven't, go ahead. No, what I was saying is, before you guys came in, is that I also have a call to the UHLS director and our attorney to make sure that we don't run afoul of any rules.
Yeah.
The director said he would talk, the UHLS director said he would talk to us, but that was only yesterday. He got back to me and we were having this meeting today, so I wasn't able to secure a meeting with him. Our attorney did not get back to me, so.
The tutoring, I would assume that Albany would have, since it's silent, at least in what you said, in terms of whether it's profit or for.
Yeah.
I
So,
would
yeah,
assume they did their homework.
the Western the Western New York Library Resources Council that you
That's
said,
the
right?
only thing that I could find that even remotely addresses this issue.
Yeah, and it seemed, because this is how they frame it, because they're answering the inurement question, whether is that a concern or not. And, they say pretty broadly, basically, generally, won't they say, here's how they say it. The resources of public libraries can often serve as the first critical building blocks of a small business. A person wanting to research an idea, create a 3D printing of a product prototype, select neutral ground to meet a potential investor, or offer compensated services such as tutoring can often find what they need for free at the library. I mean, they're basically saying, and then, there's more discussion, but basically it's, if you're not, designing something specifically to benefit one particular business and they're just accessing the space that's open to the whole community on equal basis as everyone else, it's generally not an issue. And we can still have the rules against, the advertising and soliciting pieces of things, but allow, people to use it. The question is, how many people are there that would want to use it? So there's a couple things, right? There's the practical thing of we don't police the use of the study rooms in the first place. So people could already be doing that and nobody's going to know. You reserve a study room, you go and meet, and, we don't know if it's people, meeting for a, for-profit or nonprofit reason or whatever, they're just using the study rooms. So as a practical matter, people may already be doing it both for tutoring or for other, somebody has a potential client they want to meet with for something and they don't have an office and they use the library or whatever, that may already be happening. So do we want to, make it, our policy officially, kind of in sync with what actually happens in reality? The other question is, if it's made more explicit that this is allowed, because again, right now, technically, the study room one is silent on that, doesn't really, say.
Read again about startups. What, you read something about startups.
Oh, yeah, it was just saying that there's a lot of resources in the library that's small, like a starting, so this is just this. It says the resources at public libraries can often serve as the first critical building blocks of a small business. And then it gives these examples of things people might use them for, including selecting a neutral ground to meet a potential investor. So like basically using the library as a meeting place to meet an investor for like getting your small business going. And it also mentions is offering compensated services such as tutoring. So they're specifically mentioning, use of the library space for as part of, small business activities. The only concern is, and I don't know if this is a realistic concern or not, especially because, in reality, people could already use the library space if they were aware and knew of it. Is there a risk that, if it kind of is made more explicit or clear that this is allowed, that there'd be a crowd out where there'd be too many people using them and there wouldn't be, rooms available for people that actually want them for like group study or studying.
But the option for that is if a problem arises, then you deal with it.
Yeah,
They're keeping track, John Smith is funding this every other week or something. That's more than,
I don't think anybody's keeping track.
If it's somebody's egregious isn't the right word. If somebody's using the meeting rooms or the study rooms a lot, we do look for those patterns.
What's a lot and who decides that?
What's a small business?
Taking those questions in order, it really, like, if we notice, like, if somebody working the desk sees the same name come up over and over again, then they'll dig into it, but we don't have like a trigger to be like, oh, this person reserved 5 times, it flags it.
Right.
So it really is dependent on the staff to catch it or notice the pattern.
No,
the point that I think, the one that I remember coming to the board was Mark Grimm.
yes.
And the point that he made is that, we're taxpayers. We contribute to the community. We often sponsor things for Little League. The Police Athletic League, lacrosse,
Who,
library.
The library does?
what?
The taxpayers.
Taxpayers, right?
So, I mean, I know for a fact that we use it, and I didn't even realize what was this, but at one point, it was more convenient for us to meet, like a financial advisor here. Now, we didn't pay her or anything, but rather than going downtown, she lives in town. I said, well, we just meet at the library for an hour.
you have a
And-
financial advisor that you don't pay.
The
Why
way,
am I idle?
no, it's like, no,
That actually saves her money. She doesn't pay the advisor.
They go over your investments every year, and it worked out just fine. So, I mean, by the strictest definitions, I mean, she does have a business. Was that really breaking the rules? Because no money was exchanged, nothing. It was just a convenience for both parties living in Gilboa. And, before going into work.
Probably happens more often than we know.
Yeah, I mean, and I.
Not even in a
so
room.
why
you know,
not?
outside or something.
Why not make it legal? I mean, as long as you're not soliciting business there, or like even they're saying, if you want to start up a small business, you may want to talk to a neighbor or a friend and say, well, this is what my startup is gonna be, what do you think of the idea?
Well, then you are soliciting business.
Well-
If you are trying to entice an investor, you're soliciting.
But it's a
business.
meeting
But-
place, I think, right? It's a meeting place.
I'm not, I'm not
Exactly.
judging it, I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I don't know if I think we're all saying the same thing, that we're okay with these things. Should we make a policy to define it, or should we leave it like it is and?
Hope for
No,
the
I
best.
think it'd be better to define it. Just like whatever this piece of paper that he found from Western New England or Western New
That
York.
was Norina found that, but
Shared
yeah,
it
but
with
yeah.
everybody.
Let me ask you something. If we were wishy-washy about this.
Mhm.
or Even silent, let's say,
Mhm.
how would you feel about having your staff being police people?
Not great, and they wouldn't enjoy it either.
What would they be policing?
So I think the difference, like, kind of the analogy I'm thinking of in my head is libraries and police stations are considered safe places to complete like Craigslist transactions, right? Barbara's selling an exercise bike on Craigslist. I pay her on Venmo. We come to the library to meet because it's safe, neutral ground. It's commercial adjacent. We've exchanged money, but we're completing the transaction here. I think if there's a lawyer who needs privacy and wants to meet somebody in our study room, we wouldn't ask them, oh, why are you booking our study room? We would just say, Mike Kowalczyk booked the study room. Barbara Frederico went in. What they did in that study room was their
Right.
private business. I think where the staff would intervene is if Mike and Barbara walked out and Mike was saying to people passing by, like, hey, by the way, I'm an attorney. Like, I got, you need to talk to a lawyer. Then we'd be like, hey, you can't.
Well, first of all, that's not ethical, but.
Right. So we'd be like.
He's smarter than
It's
that.
different.
Smart.
Different.
Right, so then,
Real estate
yeah,
instead.
so the staff would have no trouble policing that activity because that's kind of overt and disruptive. If it's quiet and private, what's happening in the study room, they're not going to want to police that behavior.
Or even know about it.
They wouldn't even know, it could, if lawyers were meeting here right now to meet with clients, we wouldn't really know. If tutors were meeting with students, we could speculate. We could be like, I wonder what's happening over there. I bet it's tutoring, but we're not gonna go ask, hey, are you a tutor? Did you get paid?
No, the reason I asked you that question, you said if there was a person who repeatedly or had a study room,
Mhm.
people came in with it, then the staff might get suspicious. And if you didn't have I don't want to put on the staff, police power or police activity that they're uncomfortable with. That was my question.
Sure, that what the staff are more concerned about, and it's not critical, but our study room space is limited. So if somebody's booking the room repeatedly and then not using it, that becomes an issue because we're like, hey, there's probably someone waiting for that room. You
Yeah.
booked it, and you're not using it.
That's different.
But the question isn't, what are you doing in there? It's why are you booking it and not using it?
We don't ask that question when people book a room.
Right.
So, so this, on that point, maybe it's something we want to update our, one thing to update the policy is to say something to the effect of, if someone, reserves study rooms and fails to, show up or, whatever, that they may have, their study room, their ability to reserve study rooms in the future, revoked or suspended temporarily or something like restricted or whatever. Another,
What if it's an emergency, something happens and they
Well-
call and they say, we won't be able to come, please free up.
well, that's the thing we should say, we could say in the policy, we could say, if you reserve, we ask, we ask people to, if you've reserved a study room and are not going to use it, we ask you to, notify and cancel the reservation. If you do not, and you're a no-show, then the library may,
May.
restrict your further, your future reservations or in some way. Or
Because I'm surprised.
leave it discretionary and open, but as a thing. Another thing we could do is without specifying hard numbers in the policy, we'd say the library reserve, the library may, set limitations on the frequency of reservations, depending on, demand or whatever. But, not in the policy say, oh, you can't reserve more than X amount per
Right.
month or per week or whatever. Just say the library may, and then we can, you can kind of monitor that. And if the study rooms are always jammed and you see that there's a few people that are reserving them over and over and over again, we could say, hey, maybe we should cut this back and do that, but it would be not a hard number fixed in the policy, but it would be an ability for the library to adjust depending on what's necessary to kind of keep them open for more people. Because again, I think I have no problem at all if there's like a private tutor who wants to use these study rooms as a tutoring location and they're doing that. But if you had some very active tutor who's reserving, 6 or 7 days a week, study rooms for multiple times or whatever, because they're just very, very busy. And because of that, there's like never things free because, one or a few people are always taking up rooms all the time. Then you may say, well, it's great that you have this research and you're able to use these rooms, but other people have to be able to use them too. So we gotta, share the resources.
Albany has a very, very truncated tutoring policy. What do they mean by, I wonder,
You have.
study rooms
access
are
to
available
who
on a
uses
first
study
come,
rooms.
first
No, for
served basis. The library reserves the
If
right.
Jane Smith, how many times she's used it and do you know if they're tutors or not? Do they identify themselves?
Typically not. So when people reserve the rooms, they have to give some sort of identifying information, usually a name and an email. So as long as they're using a consistent name and email, we've got a record of that. But we don't ask why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This says study rooms are available, if I'm reading the Oleum, on first come, served basis. The library reserves the right to book study rooms for library-sponsored tutoring at any time.
They have a separate,
What is that?
Literacy.
it's part of their programming actually. So
Okay.
they sponsor tutoring for grades K through 12.
Okay, so they along with private one-on-one, okay.
Whoever they're working with, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, but that is a specifically library sponsored program for Albany.
These are the people
This was
that
pretty
the
simple.
library has trained in literacy, right?
It could be, or it could be somebody they're partnering with. I'm not positive.
Because I know for a while we had the,
The reading program with the kids, Bella was in that, my daughter was, so.
Reading buddies, right?
Yeah, so they would partner up with someone from the schools, like say the high school and the middle school, and my daughter needed extra help, so it was a program available on the summer, and you would like coordinate with that other older student as to when
Keep up
we
the
could
skills.
meet at the library so that they could go over reading and stuff. But we never had a room, it was always like in the kids area, we never had a room reserved or anything.
William School had a program for non-English speaking
Mhm.
people, remember?
Mhm.
And they, that she trained some people
Well,
and they would meet here.
That's what there's a line in our current policy here. It says preference will be given to literacy volunteers and English for speakers of other language tutors who may reserve up to 2 weeks in advance. Normally, it's only 1 week in advance reservations. It says 2 weeks. Is that something that actually, that currently happens? Or is that
They do.
Is that in the meeting or the study room?
study room?
You gotta pull up the stats. I want to say it happens maybe a dozen times a month. So it's not a huge frequency, but we do have those.
And so I was just wondering, like who does that apply to? Like, is that anyone who is a language tutor, or is that, or you have to be somehow?
I think it's specifically through us. So in May, we had 2 sessions for 7 students. So not huge volume, but it was a library sponsored program.
Okay.
I can
So-
ask the
Yeah,
library
just
who does that.
Had a separate tutoring
Because if
policy.
that's referring to like a library sponsored program, we may just, instead of having that, we may just, because I think generally we have that in the study room
I think
policy.
you were trying to differentiate between these people don't get paid and actually tutoring, say by a teacher or,
But
somebody
that
on the
doesn't
outside.
say, that doesn't say anything.
Yeah, it's not clear, And in the meeting rooms, we have this thing, we say library sponsored programs always have priority. But there isn't something similar for this in this study room policy.
That you just read it. It was,
What's that?
didn't you just read that?
Well,
place?
there's that's, which I guess it says preference will be given to literacy volunteers and ESOL tutors who may reserve up to 2 weeks in advance. So it's a little, if those are referring to library sponsored tutors, basically, if that's what they mean by the literacy volunteers and the ESOL is only like library sponsored ones. I think it would be cleaner just to say library sponsored programming, has priority access.
It does say it.
In
In a public
in the
meeting,
public meeting rooms,
Right.
but in the study room doesn't say that.
right, no.
So maybe, I mean, it might be easier just to say in the study room policy, just say library sponsored programs may have priority access to the rooms. And that, let them, because it's weird, I mean, if we have a library sponsored program, it's some kind of like tutoring program, like in, the ESOL or whatever, some tutoring program that's a library sponsored, it seems bizarre that we have to limit them. You can only reserve it 2 weeks in advance. I mean, if it's a library sponsored program, they should be able to reserve it,
Right.
months in advance if necessary, if appropriate, it's library programming, even if it's the study room. So it just seems like we could revamp this and just say, look, library sponsored programs have priority access to these, to these meeting rooms. Everybody else, here's when you can, reserve it. I don't know.
So are we addressing anything regarding the commercial activity, study room?
I don't know.
Are you open to making it on paper to any business? Are we just talking about tutoring?
I think I'm open to, I think we could probably, without having to expressly say something that says like, you may use these rooms for, for-profit business purposes, whatever. Instead, by being very clear about what's not allowed, kind of give just by saying, you may not, advertise, things or whatever,
Advertise.
solicitor advert, something like that.
I'm just writing this down, so I'm not texting anybody, I'm writing this down.
When somebody says, well, can I use this? Well, if it's not the things they said I specifically can't do, if I'm just like, meeting with a financial advisor or whatever, but it's not, they're not, they're not, soliciting on the premises or whatever, I'm just meeting with them
What if
to.
somebody wants to use, just what you were reading before? And I'm very open, by the way, I'm just asking questions, so. Somebody wants to have a startup and they're interested in talking to investors. Are they allowed to advertise it?
No.
No,
Well,
Well,
they made a personal contact with a friend or somebody that they were referred to and say, look,
How many people are
have
allowed
this
to
idea.
sit at one time?
I think it's a capacity of the room.
One of them takes up to 12 and the rest of them are all less than that.
I mean, look, do I think someone's gonna take out an ad in the Oxman Enterprise and say, meet me in the library because I'm starting up my AI business? No.
so, I mean, this is
But
on the public meeting rooms piece of it, some of the commentary, again, this is from that Western New York, thing here. I mean, they seem to suggest, that people, could even, where was it in the other one? There was, one of them was, people could use them, so.
public meeting specifically says be used by local nonprofit groups.
Right.
Another thing that we've done for years and years and years, piano teachers often have their
Students.
what do you call, end of the year performances here.
Right.
No, they've been paid all along, giving the kids lessons. So,
They take a meeting room to do
They
the
usually
recitals.
do, right.
Yeah, tell the
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
because that's
Well,
great sound.
There is a panel.
piano.
so this is from the ALA's questions, on the use of the public use of the spaces, and they say, there's a question, would engaging in sales or offering commercial information be allowed in a meeting room? And then it says, meetings and organizations engaging in sales or offering commercial information may only be excluded under limited circumstances. And then it says, policies must be explicit when stating if sales or promotion of services and items are allowed. So, they seem to be saying, at least like as an you know, there's not necessarily any prohibition across the board
You
on,
just have to
on
prescribe what you
doing
do.
it. Yeah,
It's just been our
You
tradition.
have a seminar advertising your product.
I mean, absent any, you know, other rule against whatever. Now, this is the Western New York, you know, that little, you know,
Q&A.
Q&A thing, right? They, at the end of theirs, right, this is kind of saying, you know, they're saying, this is after they discuss and say, look, you know, the library can be a resource for small businesses. People may want to use it for a lot of service, you know, reasons, things like that. And then at the end, they say, but, you know, you might want to take steps so this doesn't get out of hand. And then they give examples and they mention advertising as, you know, an issue. So here's the examples they give. This is where they say it gets out of hand. If they're referring to tutoring. It says the tutor starts advertising for services and uses the library as a business address. Tutor starts camping and it says in parentheses, holding the space past established limits in violation of policy. That's already against the policy anyway. The tutor is an employer or independent contractor whose company specifically requires offering the services in the library. You know, so they're just giving these, so and then it says this is where you can have this inurement problem start when you're letting, you know, so I think it's more, you know, I think it's, you know, I don't know where exactly we draw the line.
You know,
So it's
there are
right,
a lot of tutors that, just on the road, they have signs, math tutoring. They're advertising their
Yeah.
services, please call X.
yeah,
You know, I had my granddaughter be tutored in math, and we called someone who had a son, who's on 155. And he came to our home, but what if he said, let's meet at the library? So is he advertising? He has a,
I think it's more advertising
No, I
on
think-
the library premises, but
I'm just trying
You
to
know-
cut this so we understand what we're talking about.
yeah, well, I mean, the thing that I don't, you know, that I'm not sure what the right answer is, you know, right now, you know, suppose somebody wanted to use the library space for some sort of commercial seminar type thing, right? I'm gonna give some presentation on whatever, on, you know, it's, you know,
Financial advisor.
yeah, it could be, you know, insurance or something like that, right? I'm gonna give a presentation on life insurance. And then I'm gonna be handing out my thing, you know, business cards and little brochures so that, you know, hopefully people will come and buy my policies and whatever, right? Like, is that something someone can use the space for or not? Right?
Traditionally-
If they reserve the space and they want to use it, what?
Under our current policy, we've never allowed that.
Right, so the question is, you know, do we leave that as far as the meeting rooms are concerned?
Because the other example that came up in the other Western New York documents is, I'm gonna paraphrase it because it's pretty long, was about whether or not the library invited this business and whether it fit in with library policies. So if we were making a push of like life skills for adults, that we said life insurance is important. So we invited Tenec and we said, come and talk about life insurance. We would ask them not to say like, and you can only go through me.
Right.
But I think the implication would be if people are coming to listen to a person from that insurance company, who would they reach out to if they want to purchase life insurance? But at that point, the library's invited them in because it fits into a part of the library's mission.
Right.
Whereas if someone was like, just someone off the street who was like, oh, I want to sell life insurance, well, we're not soliciting that. We're not asking for it. That's where we would draw the line, is it's like, well, you're just doing it for your business versus for something the library's trying to bring to the community.
Yeah, but if you as a library invite 10A, or however you say it,
I say
then
that.
wouldn't you be, other people that are doing the same business would be like, well, why are you using them? They're
And not
obviously
us.
promoting them.
They're agents by the insurance companies.
Right, yeah.
Well, yeah, so I mean, I think it seems to be, right, that if it's a business that has access equal to everybody else and it's just open to everyone when you're allowing for-profit businesses to use the space, just like you allow everyone else to use the space, then it seems like that's okay. Now, whether we want to do that or not is another question, but it seems like it's all right to do. It's not, you know, that's, you know, under the ALA's thing, where they seem to be saying, you could have like a, a sales presentation or things like that. It's not necessarily, not allowed. But then on the other side of of it is, if it is something that fits in with library programming, like you were saying, then it would be, well, we're doing this because of its purpose of serving our mission and the programming and things that we're providing. It's where it's in that middle area where it's not someone using it on a basis that's open to everyone, where you're letting one specific business use the room for some purpose, but it's not really forwarding library, library, programming or mission or whatever. It's just someone using it. Then that's that endearment where you're actually just, letting, them have the private business just benefiting from it.
But if any private business could do that, then how are we ensuring one particular?
Well, that's
person?
right. So I don't think we are. If it's just, I guess it's just a question of, do we want to? Because that's a change from where we are currently. So do we want to open it up to that change or not?
I mean, I think that's what he was saying, right? I don't know if he was, Grim, I don't know if he was referring strictly to the study rooms or the meeting rooms or both, to say.
You're saying it's a public
Our
space.
businesses that are here, we also pay taxes. Why can't we use it for seminars or whatever, advertising our product?
Right.
I have a question for you. If it is only a library program that would allow this, what if somebody in the community wanted to present home development in old age or osteoporosis or something like that? And they happen to be an orthopedic surgeon or a PA or whatever. And they came in and, oh geez, that fat hip too. And, where are you from? So again, that's something that the library didn't generate, but on the other hand, it's a service to a lot of our elderly. What are the different techniques and, what's developed over the last 20
That's
years?
not selling a product, that's giving health information. If that person
Yeah,
came
but
in,
that helps your
Then we
practice.
can
if that person
finance
came in and said, and by the way, Ben Gay is, that would be, I think, the problem. But if somebody came in and gave a seminar on good food for good heart, something like that, that's a service.
But they would be in that field and necessarily possibly have a business or work somewhere that would offer those services. Because who would come? You could have professors, sure, but you could also have people who are in that business.
What I'm saying is, if they were in that business and were offering a product, I would have a problem with that. I don't think
Well,
that's
so here's the
purpose of
question.
the
So
library.
when we have author talks at the library, they sell books after their talk?
So we haven't had one since I came here. I think we typically partner with a bookstore and the bookstore sells the books and then the author signs it. So the author's not getting the money, but a partner would get that
Yeah,
money.
yeah, all right. Because just thinking, yeah. All right, so in the interest of time.
There are a lot of issues which is, when I looked at this, I was like, this is way too much to decide.
Yeah, I mean, there's,
And it's probably why we sidestep it, because it just becomes so complicated so quickly.
yeah.
Well, is this a matter that we should bring to the board for discussion? It's a small issue, because we don't know how to cut this in a way that makes sense for us.
I agree, but I think, we did have some discussion of this when it came up, when it was raised, but previously there was some discussion at the full board. I think it would be better off for the community to come to the board with a recommendation
No,
already.
That's what I was going to say, a
Right.
recommendation before
Yeah.
we put pen to paper.
Yeah.
Like, if we ever decide, let's opening up to like all businesses to do whatever they want in the meeting room, obviously with a reason and limits, then that would be a significant change from the current policy, which we would have to bring to the board.
What if we attack this and, or they said, eat an elephant by small bites? If we just did the study room policy first.
But I think they're all sort of I agree with you that we should separate it in a way that's more manageable, but I think they're interconnected, because if you're saying no commercial activity in one place, then are you also saying no commercial activity in the other smaller room? Or is it a different kind of
Because
commercial activity?
There's different things in a small study room. To me, it's just usually more of one-on-one,
Me
one-on-two.
and you, yeah, but like he said, some of them are 12-person limit. That could be one
Capacity of the
person.
room, right?
Yeah, the capacity. So it'd be like one speaker and 10 invitees would be a seminar. I mean, it sort of
Yeah,
could happen in that study room.
I just feel badly for our business people that, they,
Well, I'm not saying that either. I could be for that. I just
So
think that
let's-
we should think
Chamber of
through the
Commerce.
consequences.
Do they have study rooms, the Chamber of Commerce?
So I actually just got onto the board of the chamber, yay us, yay the library. Yep, she sure is. I can ask and see what kind of
Because
resources.
there may be, I mean, if there are facilities that specifically allow businesses to meet, like the Chamber of Commerce, and have meeting rooms to do that, then I
Right.
think my view would be, and money was not gonna count for very much very soon, is that we have a limited finite space, and if there is a place for people like that to meet, sell their product.
But they're
I would rather-
paid though, to be a member of the chamber, you have to pay, right? Not free, but this
I
is,
have no idea what it is. I'm
But this
just
would
saying
be-
that may be a vehicle, a
They-
place.
like Mark had said, the business itself would be paying taxes, so why not have access to the public space?
Because this is a not-for-profit organization. And I don't see this.
Well,
It's
again,
also
with that,
a service organization.
and also we have still not heard from the UHLS director and or our attorney. I think they necessarily have to tell us if there's any
What
rules that we don't
if
know
Mike
about.
took the notes that he took and just put together something on the study room, could you submit that to our attorney? And say, are we on the right track or are we way off the
Why did you
beam
call
here?
Well, I don't know. I emailed her
should
last
think
week,
for
just
the
before I
Christmas
emailed you guys. I
watching
didn't
it.
hear back from her. I don't, I think we should get the guidelines first before we draft anything. 'Cause what if we draft something that's completely out of the?
so,
Well,
yeah,
what
so,
guidelines
To have a
guidelines
concept.
do you use? I mean.
well,
each
just,
thing-
again,
different thing.
I hope that's,
in interest of time, just because we're running out of time, I want to figure out, I mean, it's, we're not in a position right now where where we're ready to have something to like, have a new policy we can put to the board or anything like that. So I just want to, with, recognizing that Narina is almost, done with her term here and this, her,
Maybe.
and well, just, she's had to take the initiative on this so far. So I guess
are you gonna be on this committee in July? You're gonna be asked
I
Yeah.
probably, I
I
would,
mean, you've done a great job. I think you should continue if
I-
you want to.
yeah, if I can, I would like to just continue chairing this committee for one more year.
Yeah.
But
This is, we can make a recommendation to the board. But this is a big issue in terms of if we want to permit commercial endeavors with guidelines on library premises, because our public meeting room specifically talks about that.
I think we have to get more information, which is why I want to hear from the UHLS
Yeah,
director and
Sure,
our.
but it's also a policy issue that the board, some people in the board may feel very strongly, like Grim, that this is a public place. And if we want to use it, if it wants to be used to sell, not sell something, but have a form for commercial purposes, and I'm using commercial, whichever way we would define that, that's a conceptual policy issue.
here's my suggestion then. So Marina has already kind of reached out to UHLS and the attorney to try and get information. Hopefully you'll hear back and be able to get.
Let Pete Cloak.
Well,
But
I've got,
I've CC'd him on.
I've then, and that hasn't been working. I'll talk to the director at Upper Hudson tomorrow at the meeting. And I've got a scheduled call with the attorney on Monday, so I'll just bring it back up.
So I don't like to come somewhere without doing full research and having an answer, but this is completely like way too much to have anything. So unfortunately, I came with just more questions than anything. But I think for me, I wouldn't be able to present or say one way or the other at this point. I would need to know more information. I like to do a lot of research before I know
Right.
what consequences something would have for the library.
so my suggestion is that you know, why don't you see if you
I
can,
hear back, I will.
see if you can
obviously
follow
forward
up, see if you hear back.
Yeah.
And then maybe either way, if you could, you know, I know there's only a couple weeks left, but if you're able to, before you're
Yeah.
done and out of this, write up something that's just like bullet points or whatever, that just is like, these are the open issues on the study rooms, open issues on the public meeting rooms that have to be decided on, you know, like, you know, whatever, however you want to do it, something,
I'll just be like, here's the questions.
yeah, you know.
can come up with the
If you
answers.
want to look at the current policy and just point out, like, our
Yeah.
current policy says this, open question of whether we want to change that or leave it
Right.
as is or whatever, just kind of, you know, super high level, but
Yeah.
just kind of lay that out. And then whether it's me or somebody else, whoever's on this committee next year, that can be the starting point to say, hey, we haven't figured out the new policy, but at least we kind of know what the questions are and where we're working from, and that'll just move this forward.
What is that?
Because we're not in that position to,
Are
do
we,
it.
so should I, if he's available, have a conversation with him? Or do we want him to come to one of these committee meetings and talk to us? Because that would just be me relaying information that was relayed to me. It would be better if.
I
he
guess,
was-
you know, if they have anything, if there's any, you know, if he can point to anything that's more like a pretty definitive kind of written thing that explains what we can and can't do, or what the
Right.
parameters are, or whatever, that'd be great. If it's more just, he's gonna just talk it through, then maybe we push that off to next year.
Or if he has a reference that he can
Yeah.
share.
And he's a New York guy, so anything New York specific, he should know.
So, and again, this might be something that it just, we only have 5 minutes, so real quick. I took a little look at this, and I'll pass these, there was the two policies, the freedom to read and the freedom to view policies. And we had based our current policies off of, there was, ALA has a freedom to read statement, and the freedom to view statement is, it was originally, I guess, by this Educational Film Library Association, which I guess later changed its name, but it was also endorsed by the ALA. Those statements that ours were based on, these are old. So are these, the most recent versions of these was from 2010 and 2012 for these two policies. The statement, the positions from the ALA have just been updated in the time since then. So the question is, do we want to revise ours to kind of more closely track the kind of these statements from the
Is this
national?
the old one, the ALA?
That's the current ALA one.
Current.
Yeah, so these are the current ALA statements from the freedom to view and the freedom to read. And if you look at the freedom to read, there's like a long introduction, but then it gets to this numbered list. If you start on page like 4, and it's those numbered, kind of the numbered list. Some of them, you can see they directly correspond to some of the lettered A, B, C, D, E on the freedom to read, but not all of them kind of exactly match up. But my suggestion would be that, you know, maybe we want to, just, you know, because we even have, you know, at the bottom of our statement, we kind of say that this is adapted or excerpted from the ALA policy. Maybe we want to kind of update ours to kind of track the more recent version of the ALA's policy. And a similar thing on the freedom to view, where again, the freedom to view has this, they've got this kind of 5-point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 3 bullet points, 3 of these which correspond to 3 of the 5. So we don't have, you know, they've obviously updated and we haven't. And so, you know, maybe we just want to kind of try and bring it more in sync with the current statements. I don't know if anyone has any
I agree, we should
thoughts
have.
on that. Yep. Some of them, on the freedom to read, you know, I think we'd want to just adapt the language. This is directed not just to libraries, but also to publishers. I think we can just kind of adapt the language slightly just so it's specific to libraries. We're talking about the library will do this or that or whatever, you know, it's libraries. You know, like, for example, this, you know, number 2, publishers, librarians, and booksellers do not need to endorse every idea or presentation they make available.
Where are you reading from?
This is in the freedom to read statement, the ALA's freedom to read statement.
Oh,
So, you know, number 2 on there starts by saying publishers, librarians, and booksellers do not need to endorse every idea or presentation they make available. We can just make that much more simple to say the library does not, endorse every idea or presentation it makes available, just, that. So, I haven't done the work to try and, revise and adapt these in, but that's my suggestion is I can kind of do that and just take the current versions of these two statements from the ALA's thing and kind of work them into ours. That's my proposal.
I agree.
Seems like the kind of thing where there's no point in us reinventing the wheel when kind of the major, umbrella,
It exists.
like national organization has kind of a statement that they've been developing over decades and have this thing. So I think, it probably makes, unless there's some good reason not to just more or less track what they say. All right, I'll work on that then. I'll kind of do a draft revision based on. Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry to see Mike.
Yeah, he's been very, very active, so it's just a.
Some good
Has
suggestions.
anyone reached out to him?
Mike Cuspers?
Yeah.
Alicia did.
I saw him that night because I was he was there at the,
He seemed like,
he was clearly disappointed.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
We met it
Yeah.
as a little bit of a thing before we invited him.
oh, I remember.
Yeah.
I had to deal with calls and his emails, so yes, I remember. But he's turned out great.
He's turned out to be quite a good asset to the library.
And he's joining the foundation, so he'll still,
That's great.
he'll still be a part of the team.
Maybe we should call it.
Yeah, okay, so, motion to adjourn. Who's made the motion?
Barb, my second.
You second?
Yeah.
All right. All right, meeting is adjourned at 6:30.